What's up, guys? Got another one for you today on the race truck. We're finally installing the transmission dipstick. So this one might be a little more technical because I don't have a lot of spots that are good to put this thing. So we need to be careful where we mount it, because if we put it somewhere stupid, it's going to be A, hard to check the transmission fluid, or B, not able to check the transmission fluid at all because I have real limited room, because this is where the AC hooks up, and obviously my catch can runs right there, so all the breather lines are kind of running that way. I'm thinking maybe if it's long enough, something like that, straight out, and obviously the heater lines are right there, so I'm kind of shooting the gap here. But we got to pull the pan off and all that good stuff, and check the calibration on the stick also. So follow along and watch me struggle and rip my hair out, probably swear a whole bunch, and yeah, light this thing on fire. Alright guys, we're under the truck here. This is a 4L80. Right there is where the dipstick goes, that little red cap. That's just there to keep crap out of it. Here's the dipstick. This is the low car flexible one. The OEM one works if you're careful how you install it. You have to be paying attention to install it before you put the engine in. I didn't know that, so now we're using a flexible one. So we're gonna get this thing installed, and then we're gonna pull the pan bolts, pull the pan, check the calibration, and mark it where it needs to be on the dipstick, and then we'll be done. We'll be right back once I get this stabbed in, then we'll pull the pan. Alright, this is the fun of fabricating. Alright, I think I'm calling it for the night. I think I have an idea of what I'm gonna do now. We'll see. This is just mocked up. It didn't fit anywhere good on the firewall, so I mounted it to the back hold down bolt for the fuel rail. Kinda iffy about doing that because pulling the dipstick in and out, I don't think I'll put that much, like pressure on it, but I just don't like the idea of wiggling the fuel rail around because maybe a fuel leak / fire starts. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. Obviously, if I put it there, I'm going to cut the bracket down so it doesn't look as stupid and try and flip it and pull the dipstick as far forward as I can. It just doesn't know where. It's not long enough to get up here, which would be a better spot for it, like mounted upside down. So right now it's got some pretty gnarly bends in it. I need to pull it forward as far as I can. We're gonna work on that another day. It's fucking freezing outside. We got an ice storm rolling in, so it dropped like 20 degrees in probably an hour. So I just checked and it was 30 something out. I've got the door open because I can't see without sunlight, so I think I'm calling it for the night. Catch you guys on the next one when I get this installed all the way. What's up, guys? We're back. I had to take a break from the other video. It's about a week later on the install of the transmission dipstick. I couldn't figure out how I wanted to mount it. I looked at it for a couple hours and it didn't get designed how I thought it would be, but I think I have a solution, and so I'm going to show the rest of that video today on how to actually calibrate it correctly. I did get it mounted. It looks pretty good. I don't think it's going to be a problem. It's not how I'd like to. I had to modify the bracket and add some washers and things, and I mounted it off the fuel rail, so I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so this is what I ended up doing. This was originally designed by Low-Car to mount on the firewall, but it just didn't. I got a lot of stuff in the way, or that's going to be in the way at some point. So like my AC dryer is going to be there. There's going to be fuel lines back there running to both the fuel rails, wiring, a bunch of stuff that's not here yet, but I'm kind of thinking ahead of how this is going to look. So And this really wasn't more of a looks thing. It was, I want to be able to use it to check it. So if you put it in a stupid spot, you're screwed. So what I ended up doing is I lopped off the ear of this mount so it didn't look stupid, because it had another, basically it was symmetrical. So this was the high point, and then it had a ear that came off this side, and it was made to mount on this, but that wasn't going to work. So lopped off the ear, I used some washers, and I mounted it off the fuel rail, and it's, I mean, like, it's solid, it's not going anywhere, and it's easily accessible back here because the downpipe and all that's way far away from it. So hopefully we'll be able to check it without burning ourselves or having any weird issues. Also, taking into consideration, you don't want to have like a bunch of super crazy bends in this thing, because it'll make it harder to check. The fluid gets stuck in the tube, and you pull it out and you'll get a false reading. So we've got one pretty good one right off the rip, but as soon as it goes down, it's pretty much straight shot all the way there, and it pushes into the transmission, and I'll show you guys that in a second. So it comes out like so. You can see it's not horribly bent. You know, obviously gravity's pulling down on it a little bit, so it's making it more bent than what it is, but that's about the length of it. And it comes with a little funnel adapter, so we'll still be able to fill it even at that angle. So shove her back in, and we'll run underneath, and I'll show you how to calibrate it. Alright guys, so I'm here filming by myself, so I'm going to try and juggle all this at once and still show you what's going on. So what we're doing is we're checking to make sure that that dipstick coming through measures the fluid level correctly the way it's sitting, because that stick can move up and down in its spot depending on where your dipstick is routed, how far it's shoved into the transmission, manufacturing error when they actually assemble it. So what we're looking at here is the underside of my built 4L80. As I mentioned in the previous video, it's Jake's Performance built it. It's got a trans brake, it's their stage 2, and then there's my super awesome Circle D converter and billet flex plate. So that's a triple disc, so if we can do lockup under wide open throttle. And then I believe that purple and blue wire is the trans brake wires going to the connector. So I think I gotta double check on that, but it's going up top where that solenoid would be for the trans brake. So anyways, let me show you how to measure this. So alright, so on this stick right here, turn this light on so everyone can see. On this stick right here, Jake's and a lot of other builders recommend, and actually Jake's requires it for their warranty, that this stick be marked the hot full mark a 1/4 inch above the pan rail. So not from the gasket, from the actual pan rail. So 1/4 inch above this aluminum piece right here is where we're going to mark the stick for hot. And the reason why you're doing that is to make sure that this is fully submerged 100% of the time. These transmissions, especially 4L80s, are known for being very, very, very picky about not having the correct fluid level. And they've gotten a lot of people because they'll make you think they're full, and according to Jake, if you drive these things around for even like a few minutes with them low on fluid, you'll burn up all the clutch, not all the clutches, but you'll burn up a very specific set of clutches. I think the forward and reverse clutch almost immediately, and then the transmission's screwed. And then you get to take your $4,000 transmission back out of your truck, send it to someone who knows what they're doing, and they're going to charge you to refresh it. They got to cut the converter open to clean all of that out, which just a heads up, triple disc converter, that thing's like $1,400 also. So I'm on and make sure that it's done correctly, because there's a big opportunity here to make a lot of really rookie mistakes, and you're gonna hate life if you do that. So cost yourself a lot of money. So I'll set the camera up here, and then I'll kind of show you marking it where I think it needs to be. It's gonna be, you can tell, see on this stick, basically the top of it, the very, very, very top of it where the cable starts is probably going to be close to where it needs to be marked. So the hatch marking is actually, if you filled it to the top of the hatch mark, it's going to be low on fluid. So I'm going to use a paint pen to just initially mark it, and then I'll come back and notch it with like a Dremel or something like that so it'll actually hold fluid when you pull it out of the stick. Alright. Okay. Best way to do this is with a set of calipers. So, I'll take this, zero it, and then run it an inch and a quarter of an inch. So inches, we're looking for 0.25. Yeah, that's a quarter inch right there. And I gotta take a picture of this also. Alright guys, here it is all marked. I cut a little notch into it, you probably can't see it, but I didn't want to fray the cable, so I didn't go super deep, but I put enough notch in it where it should pick up some fluid if needed. Well, not if needed, it should pick up some fluid so that I can correctly check it. We'll see if we get this dipstick or not. I'm not sure that they're going to accept that for warranty purposes. So we're all buttoned up. Torqued all the fasteners to 15 foot-pounds was the spec I found. Except for those two on the front. They're at 12. Looking good. I think we're all done with having the pan on and off. I did a little investigating. So like I said, this trans has a sorry, I just dropped the flashlight. So like I said, this trans has a trans brake in it, Jake's D3, and I wasn't sure if he had already done all the wiring on the inside, which he did. I should have assumed that, but I didn't know. This is my first one I've ever had. As far as I can tell, from his instructions, if you buy the trans brake by itself, those two pins on the far right in the middle are the trans brake pins. Those aren't a factory. Looking at the factory connector, there aren't two spots for those pins, and they're like a little crooked as well. They're not the same. They're not as straight as the other pins. So I'm guessing those are the ones that were added. So that means all I have to do is on the harness side of the engine management or engine transmission harness, I've got to add two pins. It's a power and ground that goes to, there's a couple different ways to wire it, but it goes to a solid state relay, and that's what kicks on the trans brake. And I'm going to split off from that. So I'm going to have, the shifter I'm using has a micro switch built in, so I don't have to hold the trans brake button to go into reverse. This trans brake requires the trans brake to be on for reverse to activate. So I'm going to use the micro switch in reverse to use reverse so I don't have to hold a button, and then I'm going to split off of that as well, so that way I can also kick it on in drive when I'm in low gear, or actually this is their D3, so you can launch it in first or second leave. So I'll have two ways to activate it, and I'll wire it through a solid state. Up on top there's a vent. I need to run a line from that to below the transmission. If there's any overflow fluid, if it gets hot and pushes fluid out the vent tube, it won't just dump it on the ground or on the track below the rear tires where it could cause a problem and cause a wreck or oil the track down, because everyone hates your guts when you do that. But other than that, it's looking pretty good.